up. You're going back the other way now. Yes. Lucky. Well, then you better know something. This is easy. I know that. See if I get away with this.
I can see that.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the October 28th, 2019 meeting of the Shawnee City Council. I ask that you please silence your electronic devices at this time. I'm Mayor Michelle Dissler. I'll be chairing this meeting. I'll do a roll call at this time. Councilmember Zimmerman. Present. Councilmember Neighbor.
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Kimling.
Present.
Councilmember Meyer. Present. Councilmember Larson Bonnell.
Present.
Councilmember Sandifer.
Present.
And Councilmember Constance.
Present.
Thank you. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, I'll explain our procedures for public input. During the meeting, I'll offer the opportunity for public input. If you'd like to speak to the council at any of those times, please come forward to the microphone. I'll ask you to state your name and address for the record, and then you may offer your comments. So that members of the audience can hear your comments, I would ask that you speak directly into the microphone. By policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes. No person may speak more than twice to any one agenda item. Only comments related to city business are permitted. Comments and remarks that are personal, impertinent, or slanderous are not permitted. Disruptive acts are not permitted. After you're finished, please sign the form on the podium to ensure we have an accurate record of your name and address. In addition, while we won't do a roll call vote on every vote, I will state council members' names who vote in minority so that our listening audience will have a clear and accurate record of the vote. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I just want to state a reminder that the Planning Commission minutes and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board minutes are for review only. Does anyone have an item they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is mayor's items. I have one item tonight, and that is the Small Business Saturday Proclamation. It is my pleasure tonight to read the proclamation in honor of Small Business Saturday in Shawnee. As most of you know, we have a great business community here in Shawnee. In addition to that, we're unique in that we have so many local businesses who are owned by people who live right here in our community. Because of that, it's important that we continue to support them in any way that we can. And one way we can do that is by shopping at our local businesses on Small Business Saturday, which is a great event that takes place on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So I think we may have several small business owners and chamber folks here tonight. If you would please join me in the front at the dais. No one's going to join me?
I'll join you. I feel sorry for you. What happened? I walk in, next thing you know, I'm in front of the room.
Well, thank you. Sure. So from the Office of the Mayor, proclamation in recognition of Small Business Saturday. Whereas the city of Shawnee, Kansas celebrates and supports our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30.2 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.9% of all businesses with employees in the United States, are responsible for 63% of net new jobs created over the past 20 years,
And whereas small businesses employ nearly 48% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas on average 33% of consumers' holiday shopping will be done at small independently owned retailers and restaurants, and 76% of all consumers plan to go to one or more holiday shopping. Whereas 91% of all consumers believe that supporting small independently owned restaurants and bars is important. Whereas most consumers in the United States agree that it's important for people to support the small businesses in their community. Whereas the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore I, Michelle Bisley, the mayor of the city of Shawnee, Kansas, hereby proclaim November 30th, 2019 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of Shawnee to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year.
The next item is business from the floor. Is there anyone who has comments on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? Please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael Sanders. My address is 13817 West 54th Terrace, Shawnee, Kansas. I live in the Woodland Place addition. I'd like to pass out some things to all the people that I met. I'm short one, so you may have to kind of look at them, share them.
They're good shares.
They are good shares. Nope. Oh, First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have me to come up, give me the opportunity to come up and talk to everyone. I'll let you know first that I'm in love with Shawnee. I've been in Shawnee since 1970. And I love Shawnee because of the proximity to every place around, things like that. And I still say you're doing a good job. You know, you're doing a good job with the streets. You're doing a good job with putting in curbs and things like that. But I'll tell you, in front of my house, they put in an ugly expansion joint in front of a $15,000 new driveway. And I was just displeased with that. The homes in that area range probably from the upper 300s to the upper 400s, you know, in the Woodland Place addition. Probably some of you live there. I paid my taxes. My wife and I have been in this area since 1970. She's taught at Hocker Grove. She's taught at Shawnee Mission Northwest. I've done more than pay my taxes. I still get my hair cut, even though I don't have a lot of it. I still get it cut in Shawnee. I go and have, buy my groceries in Shawnee. So I've helped those guys to pay taxes. And to have an ugly expansion cut in front of my house, I just didn't like it, you know. So I did what they said. I went to the people that were doing the cut, and they said, well, you probably ought to talk to the city. So I started talking to the city about the ugly expansion cut. And the city, someone first told me that the cut was done, but they didn't want to get on the bad side of the contractors. I then heard that we didn't want to, the city has a budget constraints, and I go like, I have budget constraints in my own house, you know, but if I have to pay for sloppy work that every contractor that comes to my house does, I'm going to continue to have budget constraints. And so that was my concern as well. They did come out, I have to say, they did come out and put a seal in there, which I'll call it goop. You know, matter of fact, I can tell people to come to my house. I said, you come to Woodland Place, because I've driven all the way around Woodland Place. You come to Woodland Place and you look around and you'll see a house with an ugly expansion joint. That's my house. You come around and see one with some goop in the middle of it. That's my house. It's goop in the middle. And I'll say this, the goop is pretty nice the way it looks now. But I know that goop is going, as that curb, and the curb starts to change colors and stuff, that goop is not going to change color. So I can direct people to come to my house by coming to and looking at an ugly goop in front of my house. And I have concerns about that, and I didn't get any answers as to how we could get it fixed. But if you look at the picture number A, that's my house. It's in front of a brand new driveway. If you look at picture number B, that's the expansion joint that's cut in my house, in front of my house. Now I've circled the expansion joint, how it was cut in. I mean, to me, it's just slopped in. You look at on the right-hand side of that, on picture number C, and you see an area that they just left, I want to say slag or something over the top of it, which means I wouldn't be able to trim my yard. I wouldn't even be able to grow grass there. But I will say they came out and corrected that. They came out and chopped it off, and so now it looks like that's done. You look at number D. This area was an area that they just covered up the expansion joint in front of my house. And I think it's probably easier for them to do things like that because it's in front of my house and not in front of theirs. So those are the things I have major concerns about, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I usually have a really big voice, although I'm a small woman, and I like to talk about excellence. I've always looked and tried to achieve excellence, whether that be in the classroom, whether that be in Blue Valley as principal at Blue Valley North, whether that be in my home with my children. But I always said, excellence is the standard. My dad had an expression that my mom would say, Tom, the children, he'd say, you can't half-ass anything. You cannot do a piss-poor job. And my mom would go, Tom, the children. And he'd say, and she'd say half do the job. And so, but here, on this particular situation, I have to use the language that communicates. So what we were able to do is that we were able to come and talk to the head of transportation and the assistant, Caitlin, the city manager, the assistant city manager. And I talked about win-win. And I'm probably maybe one of the only citizens that had ever proposed something, because I believe in win-win. When parents would come in and they'd be hot to trot in Blue Valley, I try to find a win-win. I don't believe in win-lose. And when we met, we kind of heard, take it or leave it. And so I made a proposal that my husband hadn't even heard of, and I said, how much does it cost to redo this expansion joint? And they said, was it Kevin?
Yes, Kevin, right? Yes.
Yeah, said about $800. I bet there's no one in here that said, I said, because I want it done right, because I'm about excellence, we are willing to pay half of that, $400. Win-win. We said that can't happen. And so what they did is that they came out, and everybody stayed cordial, everybody stayed pleasant, all of those things. I'd like to think we did too. However, a home is the biggest investment that most people are going to make. And so we drove around in our neighborhood on both sides of Woodland Place, and we were the minority of one. Each one of those expansion joints everywhere else was clean cut. And when you look at our drive, that $15,000 driveway, you see that because those people were working for us, all of them clean, straight lines. Do you see any of that, of a mess, broken concrete, any of that kind of thing? We wouldn't have put up with it. And so now we're told that we have to keep it like it is. And what happened is that now, to make it even more difficult, is that we really do appreciate having the paving on our streets, and we were excited about new curbing. However, when that pavement came, that almost solidified, you got to take it or leave it. Well, you got to take it. You don't have any other choice. And I just feel that that is a very poor way to treat citizens who tried to come, who tried to go through the channels, who even offered to pay for half of the expense when it wasn't even our problem, except that someone else had done, as my dad would say, a piss poor job. As my mom would say, a half-done job. And so what we are here to express is our concern, and what should a citizen have done? What did we do incorrectly where we could not be heard? Because we are a minority of one. We went around the entire, and we invited Kevin, go around, check us out, see if anyone else has this kind of a mess in front of their house. And so my question is, what should a citizen have done? We called the right people. We came to them, and it really was, Kevin had to say, it was difficult to get an appointment with him. And I said, please, let us come. Let us come and let's talk about it, because maybe talking person to person we'll be able to resolve this issue in a very humane, in this environment that we now live, political environment of persons that is win-lose. I don't believe in that. I believe in win-win. I believe that there is a way to meet halfway and that everyone can be pleased with it. But the person who honestly has to live with this for the rest of the time, and he and I, although I know we only look like we're about 20 or 30, we're getting older, and this is an investment for our children that we will, when we're no longer here, but looking down on the Shawnee City Council from heaven, of course, is where we'll be. But when we're looking down, and our children have that home to sell, they're the one with the minority. So what should we have done? That is my question.
Well, I think you checked the proper channels. Kevin, do you want to address the
Sure.
situation?
Kevin Manning, Transportation Manager. So yes, the Senators contacted the city, and we had our inspector go out there and take a look at the issue. And really, there were several discussions over email and phone and then in person. And really what it came down to is, while I appreciate the Senators' concerns, the city felt like this was a minor cosmetic defect, and we felt like the crack filler would take care of that issue. There was no real issue with the function of the curb. And so the Senators mentioned their offer as well to pay for half of that, and the city, appreciates that. But from our perspective, that would still be $400. That would be taking away from curb elsewhere that isn't functional and maybe pooling water right now. And ultimately, to go in there with a crack filler was about $10 or $15. We understand that may not solve the Sanders' concerns in their mind, but from the city's perspective, that helps the aesthetics of the crack. And ultimately, the curb itself will have no issues with its actual function.
Mr. Sandifer?
Well, I'd have to say that if I just spent the money for a driveway, what they just had spent, and it is beautiful. They had a really good job done. And if I was in their situation, and I had this put out right in front, and it was looking like this, I would have probably tried to go through the channels myself. And I would want something done about it, so they were wondering where they need to go and what you need to do. I think they made the proper move. They came to the city council meeting, and the buck stops here. This is our decision to make, whether we want to try to help them or not. And I know a good part of the people on this council would feel the same way if they just spent $15,000. I would think that in some cases, especially if you see a brand new driveway when you grow up, and some of these contractors, just being common decency to the owners of the property would be to go and say, we're gonna put some new concrete in. What can we do to assist you? And do you have any comments on it? At that point, they would have probably said, yes, can you straighten this up, make sure that you can tell we just put a lot of money out. We would like it to look pretty good.
Sure. This particular issue is not something that we would typically ask the contractor to go and replace at their cost, since it is, once again, a minor cosmetic defect as opposed to something that is a structural issue.
Well, at that point, maybe it's our turn to step up. If they've spoke about spending half of it, why don't we spend the other half?
Well, the staff's perspective on that was that, once again, since this isn't affecting the structure of the curb, and we did go out there and put a crack filler treatment in to address the aesthetic concerns. We did go out there and spend several $100s on that. That's somewhere that we have to take that away from curb that is in really poor shape, and much worse shape than this one is.
I understand, and I normally don't go against anything like this, but on this particular case, and from what I see, I would think the city that we're probably responsible for this one, and that, the aesthetics are also important along with the structure of it. It's my opinion. If anybody else feels that way, jump in.
Photos of the repaired.
Yeah, here's a picture of the repair if you'd like to take a
We're going to
look.
put it on the.
Yeah, put it on the screen so we can see.
And then Mr. G, I'll get you next. Eric, I'll get you out.
Yes.
That's basically what we're talking about right there. And that's after the city went out and did their work and put the crack sealant in.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yeah, Kevin, this is the first time we've gotten complaints about the aesthetics of some of the work that's done by some of our contractors. I mean, I've gone out and looked at, and had roads pointed out to me where we resurfaced the road and there's cracks all through where they just did the brand new surfacing and so on. I think the contractor does have an obligation to give us a job well done. And I think it's really high time, because I've heard this complaint so many times. I'm getting to the point where it's, hey, let's start cracking the whip, guys. We're paying you darn good money for this contract. You've been in the contract in good faith. We're paying you in good faith. We want a job done in good faith. By God, I think they need to fix this. I really do. And it should be their expense, not the city's expense. This is expensive work we're doing out there. And these contracts should be worth it to them. They're a good name to walk away from a good-looking job that was done right. So I think I agree with Mickey that these need to be done, but I think it should be done, we should enforce our contract. Do a good job, guys, and because it's not structurally going to fall apart or something is not the point here. I mean, we're talking about spending all kinds of millions of dollars on 75th Street to make it pretty. I mean, we're talking about aesthetics all the time. Aesthetics are a big deal. For these folks, that's a big deal. That's their house, and that's their brand new driveway and everything. And so I think it needs to be fixed, and if we can't do it by going back to the contractor and getting it done, then let's take care of it as a city.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think I agree with council members Sandifer and Jenkins. This is not the first time that this has come up. I think we're hearing it repeatedly with several different contractors on several issues, and I don't personally think that our standard should be, well, it works fine, but it's ugly. I think we should expect quality work. Our citizens expect that with the tax dollars, and I think that should be the standard that those folks are held to. So I don't know what the oversight protocol is right now, but I think it's probably something we need to look at so that we're not setting that standard.
So does the council want to take action on this, or do further research with the contractor first, or?
Well, I think the council should take action on it. Whether to get to the point where it's not going to be easy to do some of this kind of work, I think we need to move on rather quickly. I think we should pursue the contractor if for some reason that can't be done because of the way the contract's written or something like that. But I think we just need to pick up the work and get it done ourselves.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I make a motion to do so.
Sorry, Mr. Zimmerman.
I do have one
And then Mr.
question.
Daber.
So, Kevin, do our contracts have any verbiage in them regarding workmanlike quality?
Yes, they do.
Anything like that? Is there something some teeth in there that we can?
I'd have to look into that. Typically, this would be viewed as something that we would not expect the contractor to go back and replace. We do have locations, if the contractor does work and we see cracking or we see settlement issues, we do go back and have the contractor replace those locations at their cost. This, to me, would not be one of those locations.
And has the contractor seen this himself? Have you brought
Yes.
him? What was his comment?
Well, but once again, I mean, what happened here was this concrete was a little wet when they saw the expansion joint, and so there was a little bit of chipping on top, but
Okay.
This is not something that we want to see, but it's not something that's completely out of the ordinary. That would be a huge red flag.
Thank you.
Mr. Neighbor? Oh, were you just waving at me?
I concur with.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we, take care of the repair job and, put it in a condition that looks very acceptable to the homeowner.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next item is business from the floor. Please state your name and address for the record.
Oh, you need to sign in. And I'll sign in. Tracy Thomas, 13022 West 76th Terrace in Seven Hills. I owe an apology to the council or the planning commission because I had stated I could not find an example of 15-foot wide, 40-foot long, deep cerulean blue stripe. And I was going to paint one and bring it, but I went to fill my prescription at Walmart, and there it was. It's their logo on the side of the building. The minutes of the Planning Commission have just been approved, and they were altered. My testimony was altered. And the comment in the Shawnee Mission Post was that Mr. Bixby, the chairman, felt he needed to edit my comments and that he thought he should act now and find out if it was illegal later. Kind of reminded me of Adam Schiff in Washington. So now he's kind of the word police, even though he admits in the minutes for the Tubasing project that he can't read a plan. And so I just wonder maybe if we need some clarification and training for planning commissioners. I don't know who was the secret whistleblower who suggested that my words needed to be changed. I was not asked about it. I would have added the words, "My Jewish friends in Brookside say this about their blue building." So the chairman, like so many planning commissioners around the county, this one has a potential conflict of interest because he's an appraiser who stands to be rewarded with new clients if he, a little quid pro quo, if he plays ball with the developers and rubber stamps their plans, even though they have been told they can't delay anything.
I'm not sure who you're speaking about.
I'm speaking to
the chairman of the planning commission?
It says city business. Read your what you read about I can bring to the floor things about city business because the minutes of the planning commission were reviewed and approved. And in court, those minutes have legal validity.
I understand that, but if you're talking about the occupation of the chairman of the planning commission, that's not correct. That's not his occupation.
What is it?
But that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. So that's the point I'm getting to, is that
Fine, I'll move on.
that information is not factual.
Editing testimony was unprecedented in the history of Kansas or Shawnee since 1855. To expunge public testimony, testimony is a sacred legal document. And to me, the way he did it was public shaming. It's kind of the new American civility war instead of civil war. So, like, for instance, no one during the NDO discussion had their testimony expunged. So I had challenged the chairman previously about only requiring 2 disability parking spaces for 172 customers and 23 employees at McLean's Market. And he says, oh, people just need to walk farther. They need to get some exercise. He also did not allow the owner of the lot next door to testify at that rubber stamp hearing. And when I told him that lot at Johnson Drive in Neiman was owned by a woman, he appeared shocked that a woman owned that business. So he claimed to dismiss my expert testimony as not related to, quote, what the hell we are doing. And I believe he was disingenuous in claiming I didn't know what I said, but he didn't call me to ask me if I wanted to expunge the word Jew or if I wanted to change my testimony. I was always taught if you have an issue, you take it to someone directly, and I would have added those 3 words. So testimony against the city or critical of the city's decision is not the thinking, belief, or position of the city. So it should not be expunged. You know, this is not groupthink. When people testify, they believe their words, and that should be part of the record. What he did fail to catch when he was editing the minutes was that the applicant presented a misrepresentation of his color scheme, showing it as light blue and not dark blue. I brought an example of a painting that I did. So he showed in his plan that it would be a light blue stripes, 40 feet by 15, next to kind of beige and light gray. But it's really much closer to a value of 8 on the grayscale. So the plan was misrepresented. And then Commissioner Les Smith made a promise on page 64, committing the city to millions of
Your 5
dollars.
minutes are up. So unless you have a motion to continue your time is up.
I have 15 seconds. To the city to millions of dollars that
No,
should be the
actually, your time is
responsibility of
up.
the developer.
Your time is up. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has comments on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? The next item on the agenda is public items. Item number 1 is to consider resolution number 1890, approving and authorizing the mayor to sign a deed and related documents conveying property to Shawnee Associates LLC related to the Prairie Pines Project. In 2014, the city issued $20 million of industrial revenue bonds to finance the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a mixed-use development at 55th Street and K7 Highway. The company has notified the city that the bonds are paid off and are requesting to exercise their option to purchase the project. A resolution is required. The recommended action is consider adopting resolution number 1890. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2 is consider ordinance number 3296, Z07-1910, rezoning from residential estates to professional office for the Haas & Brown Engineering Office Building located in the northwest corner of Midland Drive and Marion Road. On October 7, 2019, the Planning Commission recommended 9-0 that the governing body approve Z07-1910, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and ordinance is required. The recommended action is consider passing ordinance number 3296. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 3 is to conduct a public hearing to consider resolution number 1891, declaring the city's intent to issue private activity revenue bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2,100,000 for the Haas & Brown project. Bonds will be used to finance the acquisition, construction, renovating, equipping, and furnishing of an 8,475 square foot professional office building at 15902 Midland Drive. Property acquired with proceeds will be exempted from ad valorem taxes for 10 years. However, the company will enter into a payment in lieu of tax agreement, providing for the payment equal to 35% of the company's ad valorem real estate taxes for the project. A public hearing and resolution are required. I will accept a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are now in a public hearing. Ann Smith Tate from the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce will make a brief presentation.
Good evening. My name is Ann Smith Tate. I'm with the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Council. I'm here tonight to talk about the Haas & Brown project at 15902 Midland Drive. Oops. Maybe. What am I doing wrong? Are you? I was like, why is that moving without me? Okay. The company is Hassan Brown Engineers. Company leadership that we've been working with up there, Casey Steiner, Matt Murrell, and Neil Bartley. The project summary is really the headquarters for this engineering firm. They are consolidating some locations from around the Kansas City metro, including Lawrence, here in Shawnee, bringing 30 jobs with a capital investment of $2.1 million. As was mentioned earlier, the building size will now be just under 9,000 square feet. The project team working on this, we've worked with Stag Commercial. The architects are SW Architects with engineer assistance from Schlegel and Associates, and Straub Construction, Shawnee company here, will be doing the renovations. Again, this will allow for sales tax on the construction materials as well as the ad valorem tax exemption of 65%. For 10 years, as allowed by state statute. The private activity bonds will not exceed the amount of $2.1 million. So what does this mean to the city? So the new city taxes and revenues would be $271,000. And then the cost of the abatement is right at $221,000. So that leaves us with a city benefit to cost ratio of 1.23 to 1. So essentially 123% of the cost is what we will see. Our study, our financial feasibility study conducted by the city's partner, Columbia Capital, shows similar results for the county and the school district. Included up here is just the site plan. I think you have that in your packet, as well as a rendering of what this building. So essentially, this is a great project, taking a building that has been vacant for several years. I know the city's worked, had many other projects that have come in and looked at this land. I don't think any of them really have chosen we're going to use the land as wisely as this project, or probably had the end use that would have been as satisfactory to the council and citizens. So it's a great project. I'd be happy to answer any of the questions on that if you have any.
Does anyone on the council have any questions? Okay, anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion to conclude the public hearing.
Move to conclude the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The public hearing is closed. The recommended action is consider adopting resolution number 1891. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 4 is to consider ordinance number 3297Z08-1910, rezoning from single-family residential to town square for the Stag Spring multifamily development located in the 6,000 block of Roger Road. On October 7, 2019, the Planning Commission recommended 9-0. The governing body approved Z08-1910, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. An ordinance is required. Doug Allman, Community Development Director, will provide an overview of the Planning Commission report. The applicant, Kevin Tubacine, will present additional information on the proposal.
Good evening, Doug Allman, Community Development. The Stag Springs residential project is a new multifamily residential development that's proposed in the 6,000 block of Roger Road on approximately 2.7 acres. The applicant seeks approval of a rezoning from R1 single-family residential to TSQ, which stands for Town Square zoning, for 3 parcels. The project calls for the development of multifamily residential on 6 total parcels on land, of which 3 are already zoned TSQ. The proposed plan includes 67 residential units and 1 U-shaped multi-story building, on-site parking, carport parking, new public on-street parking, landscaping, and private residential amenities. The developer also proposes a number of sustainable initiatives, including solar panels and electric car charging stations. As you can see from this pictorial, approximately the north half of the site is currently zoned TSQ. The remaining 3 parcels that are actually abutting Roger Road are zoned R1. Those are to reflect the existing single-family homes that would be removed from the site if the zoning were approved. The city's future land use guide within the comprehensive plan designates the subject site as a mixture of high and low density residential uses. The plan indicates high density residential uses on the north half of the site with low density uses located to the south adjacent to Roger Road, where the existing single family homes are currently located. Staff notes that the comprehensive plan is in the process of being updated to redefine densities within the downtown area. The community connection study that was adopted by the city has the guiding principle of encouraging reinvestment in and revitalization of underutilized properties, and also encourages a range of new housing types throughout the Neiman corridor. That study also encourages stacked apartments in the density range of 30 to 40 units per acre. This proposal, with the acreage and unit mix, has a density of approximately 24.9 dwelling units per acre, and meets the city's vision that includes adding residential units of a higher density nature in the downtown area. The rezoning will have some impact on surrounding properties, primarily those to the south and east. This development will be a change of character for the area and will be visually prominent due to the building height compared to what is currently found in the downtown area. However, higher density multifamily residential uses do add an increase in population that is desired in the downtown area to help attract and sustain desired restaurants and retail uses. As seen by this plan, the applicant has taken several steps to help mitigate the impact of the development on surrounding properties. The applicant located the proposed building on the west side of the site and concentrated the majority of the open space and landscaping on the east side to provide as much separation and buffering as possible from the residential properties to the east. The applicant has also placed the shortest building height at the east end of the property. The on-site parking is situated along the north and west to help lessen the impact of headlight glare into surrounding properties. The applicant is also providing upright evergreen trees to further buffer properties to the east and northwest, and you can see those along the property line adjacent to what would be the northeast corner of the building. Denial of the request for rezoning would not appear to benefit the health and welfare of the community. The applicant has proposed a high-quality plan that provides a high-density residential use that the city desires within the downtown area. The 3 to 4 story building is of modern architectural design. The building is U-shaped with a prominent architectural rotunda feature on the southwest corner. The building will be integrated with the existing topography of the site and will be 4 stories in height on the west end and 3 stories on the east end. Dwelling units will be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units ranging in size from 678 square feet up to 1,330 square feet, with an average unit size of 1,093 square feet. This is a view of the building from what would be the south on the bottom along Roger Road, and then the prominent rotunda with stone on the would be the north. I guess I would call it northwest side of the building. This is a view from 6040 Valentine. That's probably the closest single-family residence to scale that shows the sight line, the change in topography, and how they actually are cutting down the site to offer that 3-story look on the east side, and then transitioning to a greater height in terms of building height as you get closer to Neiman Road. This is what was contemplated as Neiman Road was studied for redevelopment in the community connections plan and also the reallocation of right-of-way plan. In terms of parking, standard on-site surface parking is provided in a number of 48 spaces. The applicant's also providing covered carport parking of 41 spaces. That totals to 89 spaces provided on-site, which provides 1.3 spaces per unit. The applicant is paying for and constructing 26 what we're calling public parking spaces. Essentially, that means that they're being constructed within the right-of-way. And those 26 spaces are entered into the unit or the parking calculation. Based on that, 115 spaces total, which the code would allow to be counted. It gets you up over 1.7 spaces per unit, which is very typical in an urban type development with a unit mix of 1-bedrooms and studio type units into that mix. In terms of the Plan Commission action, the Plan Commission had lengthy discussion at their meeting October 7th. public hearing was held. They basically went over the fine details of this plan. They did grant some exceptions to the design standards that are established for Neiman and some exceptions for the landscaping and things that are called out in our code. And I can go over those one by one if you'd like and give you some context. They were essentially reviewing this on a case-by-case basis is kind of how they are looking at these things. They are approving, or they did approve a deviation to the 800 square foot minimum for those units. They justified that because of the market change and the fact that the average unit size is over 1,000 feet. In their consideration, they also gave a deviation to a setback where parking was actually covered with the building. The context of that was those parking spaces are actually adjacent to a retaining wall and are well screened. They also talked about parking in detail. Our code is set up that on these downtown projects, the Plan Commission is the body that reviews the rational basis for what parking is provided, what parking is necessary. And in this case, they were comfortable with the amount of on-site and street parking that's being provided by the applicant, that the parking provided will be adequate for the unit mix and the number of units that are proposed. They did talk about and gave an exception for perimeter landscaping requirements. If you look at the site, the section adjacent to the carports on the north side is again adjacent to a retaining wall, and code specifically would call for some sort of landscaping in that area. It makes not a lot of sense to the staff or to the Plan Commission to include that because maintenance of that landscaping would be very difficult to maintain. And through discussions with the developer, they came to an agreement that the area would be river rocked and maybe use some nicer looking stacked stone, some natural stone to soften the view of the back of those units. The downtown guidelines specifically, they did talk in detail about the design and architecture of the building. And in terms of context, again, looking at these on a case-by-case basis, if you read the minutes of the discussion, I think their focus was primarily about the presentation to Roger Road and the presentation to Neiman. Again, this is going to be a prominent, tall structure on the west side. And so their thought was to concentrate the amount of stone and decorative materials that would be more visible to the public realm, and maybe not require as much on the back, what would be the north and east sides of that building. And part of that contextually too, I think they were trying to be sensitive of what some of the houses in the area are composed of, which includes siding and those kind of things. So with that, they did approve the site plan. They are the body that actually approves the site plan. And they also recommended approval of the rezoning of this property. I don't know if it's appropriate, but just trying to give you some context of what the Planning Commission, I think, was thinking in their deliberation of this, is the chairman basically said, one of the other things is, about 3 years ago when we started into this being the study of Neiman, projects of Neiman, we learned very quickly that we were going to have to be able to adapt because this is an odd piece of land now. And even though it does have joined lots, we're going to have to adapt our thinking to say, okay, what can we fit in here? And I can assure you this is not a perfect project. But he did say, I know that. I can't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think in their view, they felt that this was a good and appropriate project. He said this is a very good plan and it is nicely done and fits in with the neighborhood. So with that, they did recommend approval of zoning to the governing body. Obviously, it's up to you to make that final decision. That concludes my report.
Anybody have any questions for Doug? Mr. Tubacine, if you want to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I'd do some prepared remarks so I didn't ramble for your benefit. So in 2015, I became aware that the family that owned the older properties along Shawnee Mission Parkway by Neiman were willing to sell. As I surveyed the property, I had to think to myself, why can't my projects ever be easy? We specialize in crazy, difficult, brutally complicated developments, mostly in Johnson County. The Stag's Creek project is perhaps one of the best examples of a private-public partnership, as each of us was dependent on the other for our success, and we couldn't have done either the redevelopment or the creek alignment without each other. These projects required trust between the city and the developer, as we had to move forward before contracts were signed or council votes could be scheduled and taken. Stag's Creek was the impetus for a new pride, I believe, in our city, as we changed the landscape and the impression that both our guests and our citizens have as they enter Shawnee. Since the start of that project, I just knew that it had to be the start of a new vision downtown, and as it turns out, the city concurred, and with the vision of Neiman Now, the possibility of the rebirth of downtown Shawnee became possible. For years, I've told anyone that would listen that the problem with downtown Shawnee was the lack of population density to support and improve the commercial businesses there. Rents were low compared to the market, and that meant improvements to buildings couldn't occur because building owners didn't have the revenues to reinvest in them. Downtown needed residents at a density that would support new and existing businesses while creating a vibrant downtown. Shawnee may know me by my Stag commercial brand, but most of Kansas City actually knows me by my work at the Land Source. We are responsible for many of the multifamily sites you've seen built around Kansas City in the past decade. We understand multifamily site selection, pitched it to a lot of the folks that we know, but we're unable to attract any of them to come downtown. So I decided that we would have it a go ourselves. I started the discussion with Stag Spring project area consolidation in 2017. It was a long road, but in late winter 2019, the property owner started signaling a weakness to sell. A willingness, that was bad. A willingness to sell, and our project initiated in earnest. From the start, the only road that we were willing to go down was a Class A, top quality complex that would make the city and the surrounding neighbors proud. The topography of the property posed a major challenge, dropping 35 feet from east to west, but this also provided us the opportunity of better blending the building with the east neighbors while still sizing the building as necessary for it to have the right balance between cost and revenues. From Neiman, the building will have a proud presence as it appeals to that commercial corridor. But as you move to the east, the building demurs and blends with the neighborhood. We have faced the building's main entrance to the east, and our residents and their guests will enter our building through a beautiful English garden and courtyard. We have just under an acre of green space to the east to buffer us, and the Ballantine homes sit over 450 feet from our building. Every aspect of the building has been specifically planned with lots of alternatives considered. Accommodations from our public and private meetings with the neighbors have been made whenever possible. We have maximized the parking area ratios higher than most urban apartments in the Kansas City metro. And we have spent tremendous amounts of time making this building more energy efficient than Stag's Creek, which is the most energy efficient commercial building in northern Johnson County. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to list the things that we're going to do with the building that are environmentally sensitive. We're going to add a 400 kilowatt solar array on top of the carport roofs. By the way, that's gigantic. That's pretty big. We have low maintenance, drought resistant landscaping, 100% LED lighting throughout the entire property. High efficiency heating and cooling, the highest efficiency heating and cooling systems on the market. 100% of our appliances will all be Energy Star compliant. We have heat reflective roofing, and we have a subterranean drip irrigation system wherever we can at it. Wall seating and integrated air weather barrier is a feature that we're adding to the property. And we have provided the most conservative water features available within the apartments. And no, that's not because we pay the water bill, our residents do. The building construction is going to be 90% renewable materials. And we have a high performance building envelope that complies with the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code. We're balancing the site to reduce the trucking that comes in and off the site, which is actually something that most people don't think about. And we have more green space than any other project of our kind in our area. This is an urban infill project that includes walkability to businesses, restaurants, and shopping, and is bicycle friendly, which is not necessarily part of construction, but the site selection to have those features was. And we will offer what you do not see almost anywhere with commercial properties in Shawnee or frankly Johnson County. We'll offer on-site recycling for our tenants. We have garden plots for our tenants that include composting for them to perform local food production. And a part that, again, we're really proud of the fact is that the maintenance shed, as we call it, that's in the northwest corner of the property next to the commercial properties on Neiman, is actually being fully wired and configured to sustain 44 electrical car charging stations that we all know is coming now and into the future. Tonight, we're requesting rezoning and plan approval. With your approval, we will start construction immediately with trust and expectation, just like we did at Stag's Creek, that the city investment vote coming in the next few weeks will provide the necessary financial package to allow us to continue. But for the city's investment, our bank would not lend the money we need to build the project, and the project would not be financially viable. As discussed with city staff back in the spring, it is imperative that we have our building footings in the ground by Christmas to allow us for framing to occur over winter. The speed of our timing is not frivolous, but tied to federal tax structures that require us to complete this project by the end of 2020. If we wait out winter and start in March, we would not be able to complete the project on time, and our financial structure would collapse. The city's TIF investment that allows for our project to be financially viable is the same increment above existing tax structure that this council has already approved in the neighborhood revitalization district area in which the Stag Spring property is located. Neighborhood revitalization district benefits can apply to redevelopment of both commercial and residential properties. The council thereby has already determined that it is right and proper that the use of city investments to redevelop residential structures is important, just as it is for commercial properties in those districts. If you will, a little junior achievement 101. Any downtown requires a balanced blend. Residents patronize commercial operators, providing appropriate revenues for their businesses and thereby creating an environment of success that attracts more commercial businesses to the area for those residents to support. Decades of the same has demonstrated that existing residential demographics and density are not adequate for bringing our downtown alive. Appropriate density with quality construction will provide a housing alternative that we have never seen in our city, while bringing residents that will spend their incomes in our local establishments. We are proud to bring the city the Stag Spring development, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Are there any questions from the council?
Point out, I don't know if you intentionally stated or not, the plan approval is not an item on the agenda tonight. The first item is rezoning only. The planning commission. Okay. Just so the council knows, you don't have to worry about the plan approval.
I'm happy that smart people like you are here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Tracy Thomas, 13022 West 76 Terrace. So maybe, when is the plan approval coming after the zoning?
I'm sorry, the plan approval is a function of the planning commission. There is no planning approval by this governing body. This governing body tonight is approving or disapproving the rezoning application, and then the next item is the funding agreement, I'm sorry.
Right.
And the TIP district. Is the funding agreement on tonight?
You can tell me if these questions are inappropriate or not. I thought that you stated that 20 to 25% of the upscale materials are required on all four sides, but that really was a deviation, which was not listed in the deviations. And Mr. Tubasing said he couldn't afford it, even though he claims this is a luxury project. Also not mentioned was that they're counting 10 public spaces that the city just built, parking spaces on the south side of Old Shawnee Pizza, that were told to the neighbors were going to be so that all the city residents could come to the little Best Pocket. We don't build Best Pocket parks. We have an amenity with a sculpture or something like that. Well, that's where the rest of the city is supposed to come and park and jump on the walking trails and everything. Where are they going to park if Kevin is counting and co-opting those 10 spots? One question I have is, isn't every other developer required to upgrade the street first, even John Peterson? So on page 64, Commissioner Smith promised fixing Rogers Road, and so won't the millennial tenants be upset if you build this thing by the end of 2020 and then immediately have to come in and fix a 20-foot wide ditch road where women have stated that their cars have gone into the ditch? So how am I supposed to get to my new luxury apartment? And I'm at the Planning Commission, it was not answered, is this luxury or affordable housing? You know, the long-term strategic plan that you told us about and engineering 2 weeks ago said what people want is affordable housing. And they want horizontal housing for seniors. So is this luxury or is it affordable? And, you know, what Mr. Tibbetsing didn't answer is what are your anticipated rents? So one of my other questions is, what's the city's cost to fix Rogers Road later? Because that's not calculated into the proposed subsidies that will be the next thing you vote on. And that there were 6 safety issues brought up by the neighbors. You can't override based on color or aesthetics or things like that. But if you have concerns about safety and concerns about the city's tax investment over and above the TIF and the federal opportunity grants, those are reasons that I think you need to give these people an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Bennett. I live at 5408 Alden here in Shawnee. So obviously I'm a Shawnee resident. I'm also a Shawnee downtown business owner. I've had the privilege of being on several committees throughout the time that I've lived and worked in Shawnee, and this is not to pat me on the back, but I want you to understand the perspective from which I'm coming. I worked on the downtown partnership, which was formed many, many years ago, initially by Mayor Allen. I was on the chamber board for 7 years. I worked on the Johnson Drive Redevelopment Committee. I'm a little afraid to say this, but I also worked and chaired the Neiman Now Committee. So I will be leaving the meeting early. I also have worked on 2 leadership summits with developers, business owners, citizens in the community, and most recently the Imagine Shawnee campaign. All that being said, I've had the opportunity to work with business owners, residents, consultants, and heard a lot of different perspectives. Quite frankly, this project is exactly what we have been working for 15 plus years to get in this community. And it is time. It is a beautiful project. We have been working to find ways to spur redevelopment. We have been working to find ways to provide living options to those who don't wish to own a home or don't necessarily have the means to purchase a home for the first time. We have been working on ways to increase our population density, specifically in the downtown area, to try to increase the level of people who are here and will support businesses that we hope to attract. Again, this is exactly what we have been looking for and seeking. This project will take a partnership, and it's going to take some city involvement, but our city's not afraid to do that when it's the right time, and I believe this is the right time and the right place. The Aztec Theater is a perfect example of that. Stag's Creek was a perfect example of that. We're blessed that we have a developer with this project that's local. That doesn't happen all the time. Mr. Tuba Singh is heavily invested in this community. He cares about this community. He lives in this community, and he wants to see good projects in this community. He has taken ugly pieces of property and turned them into thriving businesses. And this project, in my opinion, will be no exception. So I would urgently ask you to approve this project and the financing plans behind it and the rezoning as well.
Mr. Sandifer?
I believe in this project. You know, I'm not an old timer here. I've only been here about 58 years. And I remember when Neiman Road was somewhat vibrant, and it was a 2-lane road, didn't have the curbs, gutters. I used to walk to school down from 55th Street, and it was the place to be. And then it died off. You know, the businesses moved out, everything went stagnant, and everything started to get blighted. And it couldn't find a way out. I mean, Shawnee Mission Parkway in Neiman, we had the old strip malls and the Taco John's that was there forever. And you couldn't do anything with anything because of the setbacks for the creek and everything that was going on. You know, I was on the planning commission with Kevin Tubasing, and I listened to him a lot. I didn't agree with him all the way on a lot of stuff, and he knows that. And we had a lot of different of opinions, but one thing we had the same opinion on was what we're going to do to clean up the parkway. What are we going to do to better Shawnee? He stepped up and he bought that property, which was a very difficult piece to buy, and it's even more difficult to develop, and came up with the plan that beautified our city as you come in, because we were trying to figure out what we could do to make Shawnee look good as you drove into it. He did a fantastic job. You know, he took 75th Street, where we had a blighted corner, at 75th and Schweitzer, and did a fantastic job with a very difficult piece of property. He's dressing the city up in some of our blighted and difficult areas. We put over $35 million in Neiman Road to dress it up and make it look good. Now, if you can't put anything around it to to attract young people or to bring in new life, you're still going to end up with a stagnant area. It is still going to just die back off. How are you going to get new people to come in and new businesses to come in if you can't put anybody there? Everybody wants nice restaurants. As a general rule, if you don't have any offices, you can't get nice restaurants because they can't support themselves without a lunch and a dinner trade or a breakfast and a lunch trade. They have to have 2 meals a day for them to survive. If we can't help invest into our community along with people that are willing to come up and make a gamble to try to better our community, where are we going to go with this? I mean, I think this is a fantastic project. It's something we've been looking for many years, and I think Kevin can do it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman?
So I'm gonna pile on to Mickey's comments and to Mickey Bennett's comments.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Neiman now was made for. We got $35 million put on that street. It's going to be finished before a whole lot longer. Really will be, honest to God. This is going to bring some high density to the downtown area. We've got one of the owners of Transport Brewery here. I'm sure he would love to have some of the customers that will be living there coming to visit. I would say the same thing for service and for the future bakery. 110% behind it. Thank you.
Thank you. So back to the audience comments. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Carol Mundy. I live at 6040 Ballantyne. My house was on the picture of the height of stuff, of Kevin's thing. I'm 100% for it. I'm not convinced that there might not be something I don't like, But I think Kevin has bent over backwards to talk with us about what his plans are. He's already shown that he can finish something. Wish we'd had him do Neiman. I think if we try and micromanage what color he's going to put where on that building, we're nuts. After trying to paint my house, I know that it's something you do with a lot of thought and after it's getting done. So I think we ought to let him make up his mind about how that's going to be. And I appreciate all the green space he has put next to our homes. The neighbors that I've talked to are happy with that. I haven't had anybody go, oh my God. So I think it's going to be something that will be a real addition for us.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Derek Shackelford, 13600 South Walnut View Drive, Olathe, Kansas. Now, although I live in Olathe, I went to middle school here, went to high school here, started my first construction business here, and then after the military came back and started another construction business here, and then bought a house just east of downtown. So I'm very vested. I've been around a few years, and I love the area. When we started this conversation, we started this meeting, Ms. Dissler, Mayor Dissler, talked about the Small Business Saturday proclamation. One of the things that she said was 91% of the people surveyed support small business, local small business. And we invested $35 million, in the Neiman Road project to make downtown Shawnee more walkable. It would be a shame to not utilize that. I recently purchased a building just over here to the east of City Hall, and I've also talked to Will Walker, the owner of Old Shawnee Pizza. I know that a lot of the local small businesses in downtown would certainly promote this project, and we're all really excited about it. McLean's is coming in. We've got a great walkability for the area, but not a lot of parking. It'd be great to have some local community, local people being able to walk and use that walkability to come to our local small businesses and promote the growth of downtown. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is David Morse. I live at 10800 West 60th Street, also the chairman of the Trail Springs Neighborhood Association. Mayor, can I approach the bench and give you some handouts for you and the council? This is policy, what she's handing out and what's highlighted is policy on neighborhood focus plan, which covers the older neighborhoods within Shawnee. Mayor, I apologize, I've got a cold. Could you read those highlighted areas for me? I appreciate it.
Sure. In 1997, the City of Shawnee City Council adopted a neighborhood focus policy statement to set forth the city's policy on neighborhood redevelopment. And then in the next paragraph, it says, the neighborhood focus policy is about listening to citizens. No matter how professional, well-trained, experienced, and knowledgeable a city staff might be, the community members are the real experts within a given community. Quality communities as established neighborhoods are vital to the quality of the city as a whole, and the intent of this program is to set forth the city's policy on maintaining healthy neighborhoods through meaningful neighborhood dialogue designed to address community concerns.
Thank you, Mayor. I've known Kevin for quite some time, and I had real appreciation for Kevin. First learned of something happening within Trail Springs. Some time ago, a neighbor had said that someone was putting contracts on 4 or 5 houses within the neighborhood. Did I know what was going on? I said no, but I'll see what I can find out. Next day, neighbor down the street had indicated that Land Source was contacting Mrs. Pearson about selling her property. So I called Kevin, and he indicated that he couldn't tell me exactly what was going on right now because he didn't have everything together. And I said, I understand. I highly suggest that you get with the neighborhood as soon as you possibly can to be open and discuss some of your ideas and go forth with that. 2 or 3 weeks went by. I called Kevin again. He said, I still don't have everything together, but I assure you that I will do that. He indeed did that. He put together a meeting with the neighborhood. The people in the neighborhood that wanted to come came. Mr. Tubasane provided refreshments. It was much appreciated. So both sides got to hear each other's concerns. I had Mr. Tubasane after that then sent me a PDF copy of his plans, all of his architectural drawings and so on and so forth. I then sent them on to the neighborhood so they could take a look at them also. I wrote up a pretty long email to Kevin with comments and concerns, opinions, and then about a week later we had a conversation, and Kevin being Kevin did not really want to budge too much. I appreciate Kevin. Kevin is a developer, and his job is to ask from you for as much as that he can get from you guys. Much incentives, much programs, much leeway as he possibly can so that he can make most amount of profit and his investors can make most amount of profit. On the Stag Creek project, it's, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful office buildings within Shawnee. It's iconic, it's beautiful, it's well done. I do have some concerns, and the neighborhood does have concerns about some of the issues within this project, though. One doesn't necessarily equal to the other. Myself and another Carol Monday went to the planning department, shared our concerns with development. The planning department heard our concerns and in fact said that they had some of the same concerns. Went to the planning commission meeting, shared our concerns. Their eyes glazed over, and not one of the concerns that we had as a neighborhood got addressed. Not one. Nothing has changed. Our viewpoint really didn't matter in this. And the concerns are not just our opinions, they're based on policy and guidelines that you as a council have adopted. I'm trying to go as fast as I can.
Yeah, we're at 5 minutes, so is there a
May I
motion
ask
to
for
accept?
an extension?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those nay. Motion passes. Go ahead, you have additional 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm just going to do, number one, as I understand it, the South Neiman Road design guidelines, this will be the first project underneath that. So this is actually, in a sense, precedence. So I'm just going to go over a few. I apologize. few items that were concerned. Number 3 on 9 indicates that every 90 feet there should be an elevation change. And the desire is to break up that form. And that was completely ignored. Building materials, primary building materials, brick, stone, cast stone, so on and so forth. Number 3, at least 50% of the exterior walls of each building elevation, including windows, doors, trim, well, it should be primary building materials. I think staff report is that is currently about a little over 12% right now. Now, I concur, and there should be some flexibility in the design guidelines. Wants there to be flexibility, but the difference between 50% and 12% is not flexibility, in my opinion. That's giving away the farm. Secondly, number 4, it says primary materials should extend to grade due to durability. That's not the case in this. Again, Planning Commission has completely ignored that and is allowing secondary building materials to be all throughout the primary building material of the whole project. So that's just a few. Can you tell me where the other stuff is on this? Thank you. No, this isn't going to be very good. Where is everything? I know, but there's more. There's only 3 images here. Okay. Let me get to this since time is running out. So this is an overlay of Kevin's plan on top of the satellite images of Neiman Road and Rogers Road. City is allowing this area right here, I don't know if you can see it, 10 public parking spaces and 26 parking spaces that will be built to be counted towards the parking that is required for this project. But if you add up the numbers, those numbers don't add up to the total number of parking spaces required. And in fact, I'm not sure how the numbers came up at 1.7. Policy calls for 2, but let's say it's 1.7. I don't know what the Planning Commission's thoughts were on that. Is it these other cars that are not accounted for, do they come up to this area and then get out and then they clap their hands a couple times and they just disappear in the thin air? And then when you want to get back in your car, you clap a couple times, it appears. It's all warmed up for you and ready to go with a full tank of gas. I don't know, but I'll tell you the practical thing's going to happen. People are going to park in private parking spaces in Pizza Shop and in the Neiman East building, or they're going to park along Rogers Road. Right now, we've got an inlet right here. The blue mark that I have, this is actually a cut-through now. It's public, and in fact, I use it as a cut-through so I don't have to go down the other direction. You've got proposed with the Bloom project another inlet here. You've got a driveway here, a driveway here, a driveway here, down here, and essentially these 26 parking spaces that will be added are essentially 26 driveways because they
you'll have to back right out onto Rogers Road.
Mr. Norris, we're at time.
I still ask for extension.
For extension, he's got some information.
Second.
It's outside of policy. We usually only allow one, so it's up to the governing body, I guess. We have a motion and a second to extend another 5 minutes. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion fails.
But
Time's up.
you're going to have to arrest me to get me out of here. This is important, folks.
David, sit down, okay? They tried to tell you the rules.
I understand. The council has passed that.
Don't make a scene here, please.
Oh, come here, arrest me. I asked to just a little bit more time for this information.
You were on the council one time.
I absolutely was, but at that time, the public could speak.
Well, during the time you were on the council, it was 3 minutes instead of 5. It was just recently up to 5 a couple years ago.
So are you saying that this isn't important?
I'm not saying it's not important.
Well,
I'm saying
your
that
actions do say
the
that.
time is up, and that's our policy, and to be fair to everyone, we have to give everyone the same amount of time.
And I was shut
I'm not
down in
going
the
to
planning commission. They didn't want to hear this.
Well, I'm not going to argue. The policy is the policy, and we have to do it consistently and fair to everyone.
I understand. This is a public protest then.
Well, then they're going to have you leave.
Come on. I'm not gonna make a scene of it. Come on.
I've tried to be cordial and work within the boundaries. That's not enough time. It's not enough time.
And Chief, to comply with what I understand to be the current status of the law, he can stay in the foyer as long as he is not interrupting the meeting.
Okay, go have a seat out in the foyer. We'll write you a ticket later.
Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak to this item?
I want to ask a question. Isn't it true
You're allowed
that you
twice.
said you can speak twice on any item on the agenda?
Right, he had 5 minutes and 5 minutes extended.
So can he talk to me and I can speak it?
He could send an email to the entire governing body with all the pictures and the documents that he had up
Because he
front.
didn't get to the issues of safety, which are the only reason that you could turn this down.
Again, the opportunity was there to send all of that information to the governing body before the meeting and then talk the points within the 10 minutes allowed.
So the neighbors of Trail Springs are going to have to step up now and bring up these issues because he was not allowed to finish, even though
Certainly
a
can.
developer can talk forever. And so the most affected neighbors are shut down after 10 minutes. That's shameful.
It's the policy that was decided by the governing body. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Chapin. I live at 5723 Canaan, and I'm a downtown business owner as well. I've been in downtown Shawnee for over 12 years now. When we bought our building just down the street here, we were very excited about our purchase, excited to be part of downtown Shawnee, and hopeful for the future of downtown Shawnee and for making a good investment. However, in our 12 and a half years here, downtown Shawnee has remained completely stagnant. We've seen many good businesses come and go because we didn't have sufficient population to support them. Now I think we have some of the best businesses that we've seen down here, both restaurants, the Aztec Theater, the breweries, Sancho's, other retail businesses. I think we have a lot to be excited for. So I'd ask you not to let that progress stop here. We need this density down here. Kevin has proven to us time and again that he has what it takes to bring this type of development to Shawnee, and I think we can trust his judgment, and the aesthetics that he's brought to his other projects here have been well worth the investment that we can make in him. We'd ask you to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I am Marcia Pearson. I live at 6523 Halsey, Shawnee, Kansas. I'm here representing my mother that couldn't be here this evening, Lorraine Pearson, 10907 West 60th Street. Her property is right east of the Stag Springs development. Could you bring up the overhead that you had on the layout of the building with the landscaping? Meanwhile, while he's doing that, the neighborhood's tickled to death that the housing along Roger, I'm going to say Drive, it's road, we knew it for Roger Drive for a long time, that we're actually doing something with that property. It started to deteriorate, and we're glad something's being addressed. And we knew that the vacant property, which is right here, we knew it as the barn property because there was a barn. If you can see the pointer, it's right here. Pearson property is all this property. Whoa, I just clicked. But the big blank, the space right here where this house is, that's the Pearson property. And the only really concern we have, well, a couple, and it's already been voiced earlier, Roger Drive, with all the additional traffic, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Roger Drive to handle all that traffic. And with the winter coming, and Tracy Thomas commented about people dropping off in the ditches. That was me. Someone took the center of the road out, and I had no place to go. Both those sides of the road kind of drop off. And if you got no place to go, guess where you're going to go? You're going to hit the ditch. I lost a tire and a wheel during that process. And with the winter time coming, the neighbors know, and I've lived up around there for a long time, you got to take Roger Drive Road really slow. It's narrow. It's now curvier than it was before. And the traffic, if you don't take it slow with the ice and snow, guess where you're going to be? You're going to be in the ditch. So with all that extra traffic, and people are going to be in a hurry, so eventually, hopefully, y'all can do something about Roger Drive, maybe widening a little bit, or, or maybe smoothing out those deep ditches to help with minimizing accidents through there. Now, I know the businesses, We Hail Pizza Shop, or Shawnee Pizza, I should say, and Sushimito a lot. And I know the businesses there, when we go down to eat, they're just clapping their hands together with all the new business that they're going to see. And even McLean's up there in the OK Garage. We ourselves are just excited about that. And lastly, the other concern is, with our property being right here, it demonstrated in the drawing earlier that where my pointer is, there was landscaping here and here. Of course, that's not our property. The property is right here. The only thing we're concerned about is this is part of the green space that Stag Springs will have. We're hoping the residents don't confuse this green space and this green space with this being the Stag Springs green space as well. We hope that with all the landscaping, if you know, trying to run through evergreen bushes and everything, they're not the most pleasant to walk through. You get scratched up. And we're hoping that'll discourage traffic coming from Stag Springs green space to the Pearson property. We're hoping that that landscaping will be enough to discourage traffic coming onto the Pearson property being used as a dog park or a picnic area. Because we have to call the authorities in because we got people trespassing on the property. So that's all I had. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to speak to this item? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Ray Ehrlichman, 7510 Garnett Street. I just want to make a quick comment on procedure. And for the people that have never attended council meetings or not too often, about 2 years ago, Mr. Jenkins put forward a proposal which was approved. And all it takes is according to policy statement 7, 10 people in an area to sign a list, and then they can have a spokesperson speak for up to 30 minutes. And I believe an extension, at least one extension of 15 if council votes on it, maybe 2, I don't remember. It's in policy statement 7. And that was done to counteract or counterbalance when developers or other people speak for, infinity or whatever you want to call it. So there are proper procedures set forth if people need more than 5 or 10 minutes, and it's in the city policy. It's been adopted by the council, and I just wanted to make sure that people that were not familiar with it said, hey, it was put in there. So if you need it, use it, as opposed to causing the type of fracas that we had this evening. So I didn't want to make any comments on this project, but I just didn't think enough people were aware of the city policy on the ability to extend speaking time when it's done according to policy.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
And just to clarify.
That's all I want.
Yeah, that request wasn't made beforehand.
Right,
so,
and and it's very easy to do. It's, again, policy statement 7. If anybody else needs the appropriate, or needs additional time, there's a way to do it, and do it the right way.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I want to say.
Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Greg Hurleman, and I'm with McLean's Markets. And my new property's at 5833 Neiman. Just became a property owner here, but I live in Westwood, 2801 West 51st Street. Very briefly, we are making a substantial investment, and we're about to get started, I promise. But we couldn't be more excited about things like this going. That's why we took the step that we did, and couldn't be more affirmative about that. I am very sensitive to the concerns of the neighborhood. I mean, I get it. I don't live there, so I am just all for a project like this. So appreciate your concerns about that.
Well, just to let you know, you're not the only excited one. If you watch the next door threads, it's just blowing up with the excitement about you coming. So, yeah, can't get started soon enough, according to the residents.
We're trying.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, is there any additional council comments? Ms. Meyer?
Yeah, just a few comments. I would echo what others have said. I think this is a fantastic project that's going to do even more great things than we already have going on Neiman. So I'm excited, Kevin, that you have taken another step to invest down there. So thank you for that. I think that's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about economic development and getting more folks down into our downtown corridor to really revitalize that and drive city economic development. So kudos to that. I do have 2 quick questions, hopefully, keeping in mind some of the comments we've heard. One, Rogers Road. I have walked that. It is a pretty narrow street. I think how everybody describes it is very accurate. And there's a pretty severe curve there. I wondered, and I've talked to some city staff, that to skip ahead on the agenda a little bit, I think there might be a little bit of extra funding left from the 71st Street Sidewalk project that came in, I think, almost $250,000 under budget, something like that. So I think there might be some room available in the CIP budget this year. If maybe, I don't know what the cost would be, if you had looked at that, maybe we could use that funding to address some of those issues.
Yeah, and I can actually, Kevin's been
That's, Kevin Manning's kind of been looking into potential costs. There are some utility issues along Roger as well, so it's a little bit more involved than just a standard.
Sure. Kevin Manning, Transportation Manager. So we've taken a look at potential costs to improve Rogers Road, basically looking at adding stormwater facilities, sidewalk, streetlights, everything we typically do as part of our street improvement program, and looking at basically from where Mr. Tubising's development would end, going all the way to Melrose, would be about $1 million project. And so it is expensive. I mean, that's typical of what we've seen when we do these types of projects. So that gives you an idea of the ballpark cost.
I appreciate that. I do think if there's a way we can look at maybe, I don't know, at kind of accelerating where that is on the CIP, it might be worth doing, because I do think there are going to be some overflow parkers who end up on Rogers Road. So I think it is just something for us to keep in mind moving forward. So thank you. My second question on the topic of walkability, sidewalks is a big deal as we're building out Neiman. Can we talk a little bit, just, I assume that there will be one that will connect to Neiman so these folks can get back and forth, yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. So we're actually building, so the parking that's on the north side, and we are improving the north side of Roger, by the way. So the parking that's there, we're actually doing an extended deep parking stall to make sure that cars don't overhang onto Roger Road. And then in front of that, between the front of the car and the building, we're putting a 6 foot sidewalk. So when the city actually builds out the rest of the sidewalk, you'll be able to take Roger Road all the way around, then that'll walk by the Pocket Park, that's at Neiman and Roger, and then you'll have full access to Neiman.
Any other comments from the council? Mr. Neighbor and then Mr. Jenkins? Yeah, sir.
Just reason.
Mr. Neighbor?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just would say, to echo what a number of people saying, having walked extensively around the neighborhoods here, people are very much looking forward to, again, McLean's and all the improvements going on down in the downtown area, and I think this is a very vital project. Kevin did a wonderful job there with Stag's Creek. I would expect nothing less here, and also to be the first and continue to draw a lot more development to our downtown area to accomplish the goals that everybody's done. Counselor talked about here earlier. That's what this is all about, to make our downtown an attractive place and to get more folks down here.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, the recommended action is consider passing ordinance number 3297. I will accept a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 5 is to conduct a public hearing, consider resolution number 1892, approving a funding agreement with the Stag Spring LLC, ordinance number 3298, establishing the Stag Spring Redevelopment District. On September 23, 2019, the governing body approved resolution number 1885, setting October 28, 2019 as the date for a public hearing to consider establishing the Stag Spring Redevelopment District located at Neiman Road and Roger Road. This is the first step of the tax increment financing process. A resolution is required to approve the funding agreement with the developer. If the funding agreement is approved tonight, the city will work with the developer to explore TIF, but in no way obligates the city to approve a TIF district or project plan. Those decisions would be considered at a future council meeting. An ordinance is required to establish the redevelopment district. If the redevelopment district is approved tonight, the Planning Commission would review the project for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan at a future meeting. Then the governing body would set a date for the public hearing to consider approving the TIF project plan. I will accept a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are now in a public hearing. Jeff White from Columbia Capital, the city's financial advisor, will provide a brief overview of the but-for analysis.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Jeff White with Columbia Capital, the city's financial advisor. It's a bit unusual for me to be here at a district creation public hearing to talk about a financial analysis. Normally we do that as part of the project plan approval, which is the second step, as the mayor mentioned. Tonight's consideration is the first. But the developer was well organized. We have a project plan that would be coterminous with the boundaries of the district that the council will consider creation of tonight.
This financial analysis will end up being part of the project plan and be on file with the city clerk, presuming the district is created tonight and the developer proceeds with the project plan going forward. But since the work was done, we thought we would share our preliminary analysis, and then presuming that the developer doesn't change anything along the way, it would remain the same. So when the council considers a project plan under the TIF statute, the statute has a pretty low threshold that we've got to meet in order to determine that the project is feasible. Basically, if you read the statute, it says that the project's benefits have to equal or exceed its costs. So it's a pretty low bar from a statutory standpoint. The city, through Policy Statement 50, has imposed an additional requirement, which is a but-for requirement. The general concept is that we have to have a finding that but for the presence of the incentives being requested, the project wouldn't proceed. So typically what happens in a redevelopment project like this is the project has unusual cost components to it. In this case, the developer talked about a significant amount of slope from one end of the project to the other. He didn't mention the challenges with relocating utilities and those kinds of things, but the TIF statute really recognizes that projects like this tend to have cost items that don't occur in what I would call a greenfield project. It's a greenfield project, flat ground, no demo to do, no real dirt to move, no utilities to move around, all those kinds of things. Because it is less costly to develop in a greenfield site than an existing urban site, the idea of the TIF statute is to provide a mechanism whereby we can, through a TIF incentive, make this site as attractive as a greenfield site for this kind of a project. So the way that we look at but for, which is relatively consistent around the metro, is that we look at the likely rates of return for the project and the developer over the course of the project versus benchmarks for similar projects in the area. So the premise again is that TIF should be provided to create a level playing field. So we provide as much incentive as we need to kind of level that playing field and make sure that capital will flow to this site rather than another, but not so much that the developer is unjustly enriched for the amount of risk that's being taken. So the findings that are included in our report are that the project likely would not occur here as proposed without the presence of the TIF incentive based upon the expected rates of return both with and without incentives. The requested incentives, TIF at 100% for 10 years and 80% for the second 10 years, will cause, we find, expected rates of return to rise to a market rate, but are unlikely to provide the developer with a return that's materially exceeding a market rate for a similar project. So therefore, we find that the but-for test required by city statute would be met, given the facts that we have today. That's my quick analysis, and I'm happy to stand for any questions that the council might have.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council, Mr. Jenkins?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the parameters you gave us there on the but-for test. Based on what you said, we could pretty much do a but-for test on every site in Shawnee, because we don't have just open green space in this town. So you're telling me that every single development takes place in Shawnee should be given tax incremental financing, and the taxpayer should bear a portion of those development costs. Is that correct?
I'm saying that that certainly the council could come to that conclusion. Not every site is going to qualify for TIF. In order to qualify for TIF here, there has to be a finding of blight or conservation district, which is what the approach is on this particular site. There's some others, more than 51% in the floodplain, those kinds of things. So the site does have to qualify for work under the statute, so not every site is going to qualify in the city. And then ultimately, it's a policy choice of the council whether or not you want to incentivize a project in this particular area over another area.
Mr. Neighbor?
Yeah, I know we have, 4 or 5 TIF districts right now in the city, is that correct? And there are only 2 of them that are really active? Well, 2 of them, because one of them is Westbrook, the other one would be Belmont, the other one's a Hodgson property, the property where Johnny's is, and there's one other. So my point is that just because a TIF district has been established, again,
those others have plans to go forward, but this is just part of the process. And again, hopefully those others do go forward, but again, they might not because the original project in the Belmont, I'm sorry, I'm not using the right name. Belmont Promenade, that's when we originally established that TIF district, and that developer was withdrew. So, it's just part of the process. That's my point.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to conclude the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The public hearing is closed. There are two recommended actions to consider. The first is consider adopting resolution number 1892, approving the execution of a funding agreement with the developer Stag Spring LLC. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes with council members Jenkins and Kimling voting in dissent. Second recommended action is consider passing ordinance number 3298, establishing the Stag Spring Redevelopment District. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Okay.
Motion passes with Councilmember Jenkins and Kimling in dissent. Item number 6 is to consider contract number 2019-082 with HNTB related to the Monticello Road Reconstruction Project number 3489. This project is included in the capital improvement plan. It would improve Monticello Road from Shawnee Mission Parkway to the 7900 block. Staff is recommending an agreement with HNTB, the original design consultant for engineering services, in the amount of $254,780. Recommended actions consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the final contract as approved by the city attorney. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Accept a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 7 is consider resolution number 1893 and 1894 and ordinance number 3299 related to the sale and issuance of the 2019 B general obligation refunding and improvement bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $24 million. Staff is proposing the issuance of GO bonds to refinance existing bonds and authorize new bonds for various capital projects. One resolution is required to authorize bond financing for various stormwater projects, and an ordinance and resolution are required to authorize the issuance of bonds and to prescribe the form of the bonds. There are 3 recommended actions to consider. The first recommended action is to consider adopting resolution number 1893, authorizing bond financing for the smaller stormwater pipe repair project. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Second recommended action is consider passing ordinance number 3299, authorizing the issuance of 2019 B general obligation refunding and improvement bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $24 million. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Final recommended actions, consider adopting resolution number 1894, prescribing the form and details of 2019 B general obligation refunding and improvement bonds. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is staff items. Item number 1 is to consider bids and award contract number 2019-083 for the 71st Street Sidewalk Improvement Project number 3490. This project is on the capital improvement plan, will extend sidewalks to Airfort Park. 2 bids were received, and staff recommends awarding the contract to Mega Industries for a total of $133,671.20. Recommended action is consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience want to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2 is to consider bids and award contract number 2018-084 for the master plan services for Belmont Park. This project is on the capital improvement plan, would create a new 40-acre park west of K7 Highway at 55th Street in Belmont. 8 bids were received. Staff is recommending awarding the bid to Confluence in the amount of $92,540. The recommended action is consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 3 is to consider bids and award contract number 2019-085 for the construction manager for Belmont Park. On July 22nd, 2019, the governing body approved the construction manager at risk delivery method for the project. 3 bids were received. The staff is recommending awarding the bid to Centric, who have agreed to waive this fee for pre-construction services. The contract is presented to the governing body since the execution of the guaranteed maximum price amendment will exceed $50,000. If the governing body accepts the guaranteed maximum price and final design, the amendment to the contract will be submitted to the governing body for approval. The recommended action is to consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 4 is to consider contract number 2019-086 to Irvin Cable Construction LLC for installation of approximately a 2-mile route of fiber optics along the Shawnee Mission Parkway West route. As part of the city's fiber master plan, the governing body has previously approved co-locating opportunities as a lower cost option for the city to have fiber installed. Irvin Cable is currently working with a telecommunications provider to install cable along Shawnee Mission Parkway west of I-435. Staff is recommending a co-location contract with them in the amount of $73,982.53. The recommended action is to consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Accept a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 5 is to consider contract number 2019-087 with Neptune Benson for a new filtration system at the Jim Allen Aquatic Center. The existing filtration system has reached the end of its useful life. Currently, all of the Thomas A. Suter Aquatic Center is served by Neptune Benson filters, and staff is recommending a sole source purchase of a new filtration system from them in order to meet the pool opening deadline. This will allow all of our pools to operate on the same filtration system, which will streamline maintenance activities. The recommended action is to consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 6 is to consider contract numbers 2019-088 and 089 for watershed organization agreements and approval of bylaws with adjacent stormwater management advisory council cities in Johnson County for participation in the Johnson County Stormwater Management Program. Representative cities have finalized watershed organization agreements and bylaws for participation in the reorganized Johnson County Stormwater Management Program. In order to have a project considered for funding for 2021 and beyond, Shawnee must be a participating member of the watershed organization. Since there are 2 watersheds in the city, 2 agreements and approval of sets bylaws are required. There are 4 recommended actions to consider. The first recommended action is to consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract for watershed organization number 1 as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience want to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Second recommended action is to consider approving the bylaws for watershed organization. I think this means number 2 because we already did number 1. Number 2, does anyone on the council have any questions? It's still number 1? Sorry. Number 1, does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Third recommended action is to consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract for watershed organization number 6 as approved by the city attorney. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Final recommended action is consider approving the bylaws for watershed organization number 6. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? Accept a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items. Item number 1 is to ratify the semi-monthly claim for October 28th, 2019 in the amount of $5,200,183.03. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Miscellaneous council items. Does anyone on the council have an item they would like to discuss? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.
How'd you know?